Hi guys, Miss Groshin here with her teaching assistant, Chloe, who's eating the instruction flowers. Chloe, stop eating the flowers. So today for science, I am bringing lesson 1 and plant reproduction. So before we begin with how do plants reproduce, meaning how do flowers make more flowers, we need to first understand the parts of the flower. So today's lesson is what are the parts of the flower? A lot of this should be review from maybe when you were in some of the primary grades like kindergarten, first, and second. So first we have the flower here. The part here, the long green part here, is called the stem. The stem has a couple important parts. One is to hold it up. It's kind of like our backbones here. Without our backbones, we would just be flopped over. So the stem allows the flower to stand tall. And so it is able to absorb things such as the sunlight from the sun. Other important parts of the flower is we have the leaves. The leaves aren't just there to look like arms. The leaves are actually there because they are the ones that soak in the light from the sun and the air. And inside the leaves is where the plants are actually going to perform what we call photosynthesis, which is something you'll learn a little later on in your science careers. But that's where the plants make food. They can't just go to the store and pick themselves up something for dinner. Instead, they have to make food inside of their leaves and it feeds the flower. We have the roots. The roots is what goes down into the ground. They also have multiple jobs. The roots are there to hold the flower or the plant inside the dirt so that it doesn't fall out. If you've ever tried to pull a flower or a plant up, it feels like it's stuck. And when you pull it up, it actually sounds like you break something, and you are. You're breaking the roots in order to get it outside of the ground. So the roots are there to stabilize and to keep it rooted in place so it doesn't just float away. It's also there, you can see kind of like the little lines to absorb, to drink up the water and the nutrients from the ground. So this is kind of almost like our mouth. It's in the soil, in the dirt, and it's absorbing, taking in the water, the rain from the ground. When we plant, we put in soil, which is a special kind of dirt that has like vitamins and nutrients, the same things we want to have for ourselves to keep ourselves healthy and strong. So this is where he's getting his food. This is where he's making his food here in photosynthesis. And this is our stem. It's carrying the water from the roots up, transporting it to the flower, to the leaves, and holding it nice and strong. So the flower is created after a few days. It doesn't just sprout out like this. It first kind of comes up and it's like a sprout, and over time it grows and becomes bigger and bigger. Once it's developed the stem and the leaves, it eventually will grow the flower. The flower is there actually to attract animals to it. It has a pretty scent so that insects and bees and butterflies and birds will float over to it and check it out. It has pretty colors that attract these insects because they're needed later for what we're going to learn about pollination. So they're not just pretty things to look at for us. So our flowers have learned to adapt over the years, such as becoming pretty colors to attract the animals to help with their pollination. So our flower, these are what we call the petals. And in the very center of the flower, we have what we call the seed. You've also probably have seen seeds inside like a fruit. When you open up an apple or an orange or an avocado, you have different size seeds inside of these fruits. When a flower grows, depending on the kind of flower, like in a tree, for instance, an apple tree, the tree grows and you'll start seeing flowers all over the tree. And then those flowers go away because what's going to grow there instead is going to be your apple. So then the apple grows and that's going to become the fruit. So the fruit is grown from the flower. It stores the seeds so that it kind of holds the seeds for safety. And then eventually an animal or a human will come and eat that fruit, and we're going to deposit the seeds. And we're going to talk more about depositing seeds on another video. So before the flower becomes this, we usually get a tiny flower that we call a bud that develops into a flower. So it's like the baby flower, it's becoming the flower. So the seed helps the flower reproduce. It's going to be the part where the flower is going to grow from. The seed is how it begins. So these are all the parts of the flower. So if you're seeing a flower outside, these are all the parts you should be able to see. Now, if I have a magnifying glass and I zoom in on the flower part, this is what the flower looks like, the different parts of a flower. Believe it or not, flowers have a male part and a female part. And together, the male part and the female part make what we need for pollination and for reproduction and creates the seeds, which are going to grow the new flower. So the seeds are kind of like the baby of the flower. So in our flower parts, we have the male parts. So the male parts, if you've ever looked in the flower and you see what looks like little green pieces that come up like this, and on the very top, you have like little yellow orangey tops, that's where your pollen is going to be. That is called the filament and the anther. And that's where the male parts are. Then in the female part, that whole part is called the pistil. And at the very top, this green part here is the stigma. The part holding it up, like the neck, is the style. And this part here is the ovary. It's inside here that it's holding the beginnings of the seed. So the parts of the pistil need to meet up with the parts of the stamen, man. So the male parts have to come together to make the seeds. It doesn't always happen on its own. It actually needs the help of other elements such as wind, water, gravity, animals, insects. And we're going to continue that tomorrow. So for today, parts of the flower and parts of the flower inside here, the male and the female parts. Thank you for tuning in. Before we go, I would like to show you my flower that I got from Westgate the other day. I saved it. And when I picked it up, it was dying. It was very, very dry, and I was scared it was going to die. I added water and I put it outside, and it started to kind of grow back. You can kind of see. And what I was really surprised about today when I picked it up is it has started to regrow a new flower. So here's my flower bud. I can see the stems that are holding it in. It doesn't come out very easily because the roots are holding it inside the soil. The soil is where it's holding its nutrients. I put it outside so the leaves can make its own food, and I'm feeding the flower. So hopefully in a few days, my flower will regrow completely. Tune in tomorrow for the next part of plant reproduction.